The next event after this is that they spent the night. He went out early in the morning, prayed. Then the other people who were there at the house found him. In Luke, it's a little bit more descriptive. A bunch of people came to him and asked him to stay, but he said, no, I'm going into the other cities. And that's when he invited them to come with him, but it doesn't say that they went with him. It doesn't have any of their responses. It just says, then he went and preached everywhere throughout all of Galilee. So, continuing on, the first words are Mark 1:35, and in the morning, rising up a great while before day. Luke, and when it was day, he departed and went into a solitary place. Oh, look at that, there's already a problem. So, what was it before day or was it the daytime? Oh, man. Okay, I know that in other parts of the Gospels, it clearly says that Jesus went off on his own early in the morning while it was still dark, before sunrise, and prayed. So, that's most likely what happened here. Mark, I've heard, was a companion of Peter, and Simon Peter, he actually was here. This is Simon Peter's house. So, Simon Peter definitely knows what happened, and Mark is relaying what he heard from Simon Peter. Luke is a historian, and I'm sure he questioned a bunch of the disciples and other people, so I guess I don't really know who's more believable. I'm gonna have to choose. I can't have them both. It can't be when it was day he departed and a great while before it was day he departed. How can they disagree so much? How does this happen? This is strange. I know it's a weak explanation, but perhaps it's written in Luke that he departed during the daytime because maybe they just didn't know when he left. And when they woke up, they found him during the daytime, and maybe they just assumed. They're just different. So I'm gonna go with Mark's account. In the morning, as opposed to and when it was day. And is in both. When it was, however, is not in Mark, only in Luke. Day is in both, but the explanation in Mark is in the morning, rising up a great while before day. So I'm just going to have to pick. I'm picking Mark. I'll say and from both, and then I'll move on into what is only written in Mark. And in the morning, rising up a great while before, and then day is in both. And when it was day, then it says he departed and went into a solitary place, or he went out and departed into a solitary place. Okay, so I could say he from both and went out from Mark. In Luke it says he departed and went into a desert place, whereas in Mark it says and departed into a solitary place. So I'm gonna say, I think I'm going to stick with the order from Mark, because not only did he go out, but he also departed. So it would be went out and departed. It couldn't be went out, departed, and went into a desert place. But the and is in both. So I'll have it there in the color of both, and I'll just explain that it actually comes later in Luke. But it's actually the order from Mark. And departed, went is there. I'll say the went that came earlier in the sentence is from both, and again I'll just explain in the addresses where it came from, that it came from later in Luke. And departed, now I'm going to put into a desert place, into a solitary place. Desert, it's underlined and they have a note saying deserted. That makes more sense, deserted, but the word solitary has the explanation right there, so I'll put that into a solitary place. Into a is from both. Solitary is only from Mark. Place is from both. Mark, and there prayed. Luke, and the people sought him and came to him and stayed him that he should not. Okay, it doesn't even mention that he prayed. Okay, so I have to put that from Mark. And there prayed. Next verse in Mark says, and Simon and they that were with him followed after him, and when they had found him, they said to him, all men seek for you. Luke, and the people sought him and came to him and stayed him that he should not depart from them. So Mark explains that it's Simon and they that were with him. Luke only says the people sought him. So I'll definitely include the more descriptive Simon and they that were with him. But and is from both. and it comes after Simon as well. In Mark it says, and Simon and they that were with him. Luke just has, and the people sought him. So I'll put and Simon only from Mark. Then I'll have the and be combined, and they that were with him, as opposed to, and the people. Instead of they from Mark, I'll put the more descriptive the people, only from Luke. Luke, it continues on, sought him. Mark says, that were with him followed him. That were with him is the extra description, so I have to put that. It's only from Mark. That were with him followed after him, and when they had found him, they said to him, all men seek for you. Followed after him, and when they had found him. Okay? Luke says, sought him and came to him and stayed him. Okay, sought him, followed after. Okay, so followed after is equivalent to sought him. There's no and there, so I can't put both. Sought him and came to him, or sought him and when they had found him, or followed him and when they had came to him. I'll say sought. It's more descriptive that they were looking for him than just that they followed him. But it sort of implies that they didn't know where he went, whereas in Mark it seems that they did know where he went. No, it says when they found him. So in both Mark and Luke, there is subtle hints that they didn't quite exactly know where he was, and they looked for him. I feel okay saying sought, that were with him. I'll just go on to just sought him. Or just sought from Luke, and then him from both. Or I could say sought after him, exchange followed with the word sought. Yeah, that's what I'll do. I'll include after from Mark, and then I'll have him from both. Sought after him, comma, in Luke, sought after him, period, in Mark. Mark then says, and when they had found him, Luke says, and came to him. I think that's saying that when they found him, they said to him. It's more descriptive than just saying, and came to him. It's not just that they arrived. It's that their seeking after him succeeded. So I'm going to have, and when they had found him, instead of just, and came to him. They said to him, all men seek for you. And then I'll go back to Luke, and stayed him that he should not depart from them. Okay, that's what I'll do, yeah. So Luke saw him, and came to him, and when they found him. So and from both. And then just Mark, when they had found from both him, comma. Oh, I'm saving the last part of 42 in Luke 4 for the end. So I'm definitely going to put, they said to him, all men seek for you, and stayed him that he should not depart. Oh, stayed him. I'm thinking I could put from Luke, they stayed him, and then I could put, and then said to him, all men seek after you. No, because stayed him that he should not depart from them. I definitely have to put the sentences from Mark together. They said to him, all men seek after you. And the sentences from Luke together. And stayed him that he should not depart from them. Those two, the two from Mark and the two from Luke, are not inseparable, but it seems like they should be together. If I was going to change the words around, and I exchanged said for saying, that would be perfect. I could then say, and stayed him that he should not depart from them, saying to him, all men seek after you. That would be perfect, but I'm not going to do that. So I could put, they said to him, all men seek for you, and stayed him that he should not depart. Yeah, I think that's fine. The question is, when should that staying, when should that delay be? Should it be just before their comments, all men seek after you? Or should it be after? Should it be like they arrived, held him, they delayed him, and then explained themselves, all men seek after you? Yeah, that's how I'm going to do it. I'm going to have the fact that they arrived, they stayed him, and then have them explain why. And then Jesus responds. Because who's in charge here? Jesus is in charge. It's not like they're going to arrive and give their excuse, their explanation, and then Jesus is going to be like, okay, and then a little while later change his mind and be like, nah, I'm going. No. He's polite enough to stay when they are asking him to stay, but once they give their explanation, he's going to respond and say, no, I'm going. I'm going to the other towns. So that's how it's going to be. And when they had found him and stayed him, that he should not depart from them, they said, okay, that works perfectly. So now, just from Luke, when they found him and stayed him, yeah, that works out fine. That he should not depart from them. So this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to change the comma to be from Luke, because I have to have the comma for later between that he should not depart from them and the word they said. From Mark. They said to him, all men seek for you. Now the next verse in Mark says, and he said to them. The next verse in Luke says, and he said to them. Perfect, both the same. Mark says, let us go into the next towns. Luke says, I must preach the kingdom of God to other cities also. That's totally different. It's as if he's inviting them and then explaining. If I could put he's inviting them from Mark, and then he's explaining why in Luke. I could say, let us go into the next towns, then from Luke, I must preach the kingdom of God in the other cities also. So that's a good before and after. Luke ends, for therefore am I sent. Mark then ends, that I may preach there also. So it's kind of the same as the first part in Luke, and then ends, for therefore came I forth. For therefore am I sent. Okay, the ending is a little different, but I'm definitely starting with Mark, the invitation to come with him. Let us go into the next towns, that I may preach there also. I must preach the kingdom of God to other cities also. Okay, saying I must is much more important than saying that I may. It's like he's asking them to allow him as opposed to stating emphatically what he has to do. So I'm going to put the must, that I may, or just I must. Or can I say that I must? No, that doesn't make sense. Let us go into the next towns. I must preach the kingdom of God to other cities also. I already put the next towns. Maybe I can combine the other cities with the next towns. No, I can't do that. Let us go into the next towns. It's pretty clear. I just have to put it from Luke and not from Mark. I must preach the kingdom of God, other cities also. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to pull the trigger and switch over to Luke. I must preach the kingdom of God. This is where those who believe that the kingdom of heaven and the kingdom of God are different might be interested, because it's not mentioned in Mark what he's actually preaching. It's just saying that he's preaching. It is mentioned in Luke that he's preaching the kingdom of God to other cities also. And then the last part is from Luke, for therefore am I sent. Last part from Mark, for therefore came I forth. Coming forth is only part of the story, because he's already there, so obviously he came forth. But the fact that he was sent is an addition to the story that I think needs to be included. So, for therefore am I sent, I think that's more important than just saying, for therefore came I forth. Because if you're sent and you're there, it means you came forth. But just saying you came forth doesn't necessarily include the fact that you were sent. Sent is more inclusive. It's a more full explanation. For therefore is in both, however. Also is a colon. Also, preach. That I, okay, I'll say I is in both because it is. It's just in a different order. Preach is in both. See, I would have left it the way it was with that first section from Mark and the second section from Luke, like when I first started, but now I'm trying to show that these words are in both, and it's important to include that. That's why it's so difficult for me now, and it takes so much time, but it's worth it. Also, for therefore is in both, am I sent, am I forth. So I'll say am I, the I is from both. Both I, sent from Luke. Okay.